Hey everybody, Jeff Oriyama here. If you've been building AI applications, you should probably give this list a look. The OWASP MCP Top 10. It's an inventory of the biggest security risks around the Model Context Protocol. None of these are novel to MCP or agentic development itself, but agents do have a way of magnifying the consequences of your security posture. Here's my thesis. Agents abhor a governance vacuum. Every capability needs to be discoverable and governable, and those systems should be ergonomic. Agents can read files, they can call APIs, and they can do scary things like spend money, modify source code, RMRF, and create marketing copy. These are all things that traditionally required a human to exercise judgment. Once an agent can perform those actions, that judgment is a little less auditable, so to speak. So judgment increasingly must be encoded as policy. Now look at the OWASP lists through that lens. MCP-01, token mismanagement and secret exposure. Tale as old as time. Might look like a tooling problem, but how should your team choose and use a tool? That's a governance question. MCP-02, privilege escalation via scope creep. MCP-07, insufficient authentication and authorization. And MCP-10, context injection or oversharing. Basically, this boils down to who's watching to constrain agent and user privileges so they don't nuke or leak your prod database 9 months from now. MCP-3, tool poisoning, and MCP-4, software supply chain attacks and dependency tampering, and MCP-06, intent flow subversion. We all use third-party dependencies. Which do you let in, and how do you observe and harden it all? Again, a governance problem. MCP-05, command injection and execution. As worded, this is such a broad category, but to me this amounts to how do you empower your team, your humans in the loop, to exercise judgment when their agents make tool calls and fetch data. MCP-08, lack of audit and telemetry, and MCP-09, shadow MCP servers. You can't govern what you can't see, case in point. So this entire list could all be addressed by proper governance. So right now, ask yourself, and go ask your team, what are we doing about this now so that our users are protected? One more observation. Agents can't use capabilities they don't know about, and SecOps can't govern capabilities they don't know about. One of the great promises of protocols like MCP is discoverability. Instead of relying on handwritten integrations or brittle prompts, an agent can inspect the capabilities available to it. That's both a feature and a good security capability. If your organization already has an approved way for sending email, deploying software, or processing invoices, you want the agent to find that capability. Because if it can't, it might try to build its own. Maybe your company has a carefully governed deployment service with approvals, auditing, and rollback built in. But if the agent can't discover it, it might write a shell script or a curl call or one of those long one-liners that are easy to just hit allow on. 999 times out of 1,000, it's probably fine, but that's not enough for most teams. It's this weird case where by handing more capabilities to an agent, you might be paradoxically reducing the chance that you'll have to say no, or worse, oops, later. So consider whether you have a catalog of capabilities. What services exist, what they do, who owns them, what permissions they require, and when an agent should use them. So here's some advice. First, embrace least privilege. Give every MCP server the minimum permissions and shortest-lived credentials it needs to do its job. If the server doesn't need access to something, don't give it access. There are some frameworks to help you with this, if that's the path you want to go down. Second, treat tools as untrusted inputs. Tool descriptions, parameter schemas, and tool outputs all influence model behavior. Validate them, review them, and don't assume they're trustworthy simply because they came from an MCP server that you think you might trust. Finally, keep humans in the loop when stakes are high. Financial transactions, destructive operations, and sensitive data access should require explicit user approval. The model shouldn't be the final authority on high-impact actions. Oftentimes, that's a product of oversight, not necessarily neglect, if that makes sense. That's why I find this list so interesting. It's evidence that governance is becoming a first-class engineering discipline for AI applications. Agents abhor a governance vacuum. That's it for now. See you next time.